turnaround. However, he requested that this go in front of you first to see what would happen with the driveway at all. To begin with, so this is the driveway, this is how we got there, this is another angle, this is facing towards the home. You can see more of that turnaround. There was additional patio work done into the exterior garage. There it is facing the other way. And that takes us through my presentation, and I would be happy to stand to any questions that you may have.
When you are repairing or replacing a driveway, are you expected to meet the driveway standards, or does your driveway, if it's non-conforming, can it stay non-conforming? Does transportation have any guidance on that?
There are several different ways to answer that question. I will say this, and then if you have anything more specific based on the information I provided, I'd happy to hone in on that. So the city of Asheville currently, though this is changing, the city of Asheville is responsible for apron maintenance, which is why we have a very specific SSDM guidance for that first 10 feet, making sure it is asphalt, making sure it is CABC and it meets those width standards. There are also pitch standards. Some of that is regulated by us. Some of that also comes from the Americans with Disabilities Act, if it has a sidewalk. Now, if you are doing a new driveway outside of that 10 feet and it is more than repair and replace, just as the case with anything we review with the city, anything new has to meet the new code. I'm sure you can find plenty of driveways out there that do not meet the materials, do not meet the width, don't meet other parking standards. Part of that is because it's done with a different code. However, if they were to bring in a new permit, they would then be required to bring the entirety of the driveway up to code. And I do want to make one thing clear off that. So driveway maximum width outside the building envelope is 18 feet. It can be 39 feet. It can be 69 feet. It can be however many feet you desire, as long as it's within the building envelope. We only regulate and dictate what is outside that area. Does that help?
Yeah, I mean, that's certainly been my experience as a landscape architect. It's been my experience as a homeowner in the city of Asheville, is tearing out a driveway and having to bring it to city standards. So, as well as getting modification for a very flat street that it increased the cross slope was too significant. So on a road that's been there since the 1960s. So it's kind of interesting. So I understand the complexities of getting a driveway permit in the city of Asheville. On that drawing, so I just wanted to make sure I understood on the drawing that the applicant provided. I guess the house side of the red box is the setback line?
Yeah, so you can see right where this is 25 feet right here.
Oh, I
so
see
this is that
now.
front
Okay.
setback.
Okay, yeah.
And that's,
Okay, are there any other questions for Mr. Starbaum? Thank you. I may ask you to come back up when we do the votes on these.
yeah, certainly. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board.
Okay, does the applicant have any thing that he would like to say? Yes, please. And if you could identify yourself, please.
I am Nicholas Cardillo, owner of the Yard Fathers. First time ever doing this, so I'm not quite sure if you had any questions for me. We did not pull permits for this before the job was done. I understand that. We would have known about the setback and probably modified. With the turnaround space, With that red square setback doesn't quite work, wouldn't be very comfortable, so I guess what we're requesting is either to keep it the same or at least some sort of variance. If we could even get like 5 feet less of a setback, would still make it a comfortable turnaround and kind of more of like a safer way to pull out of the driveway and then get out of their driveway.
I'm just curious, is it your
Yeah.
opinion that the current city standards for driveways are inherently unsafe?
No. No. This was an unusual setback. I never had to deal with such a long setback, which is 25 feet. I'm not quite sure what your question is. Do I find it unsafe as far as?
Well, you were talking about safety.
It's just a comfortable way for them to pull out, turn around, and then instead of trying to back out of their driveway into a busy street. That was the purpose of it. It's not a parking spot. It's more just a pull-out spot so they can comfortably get out of their driveway. If we cut it in half, it would be a lot more difficult for them to actually back up into and stay on to the pavers that we would have to remove in that box.
Okay, I guess what I'm saying is if they went to a neighboring house that had a driveway that met the standard,
Yep.
would you consider that too difficult to get in and out of? I mean, if you're saying that you need it to be this big to get in and out of, are you saying the standard is too difficult?
In this situation, it would be. If we had to move that section up towards the house, it wouldn't be, you wouldn't be able to do that. You wouldn't be able to pull out and use that actual space. So the positioning of the width of where it's at is what makes the most sense and comfortability of pulling out of their driveway backwards and then making that turn in that landscape and in that setting. So if we were to move anything up, and I know Sam mentioned like we could not put it right there and then put it up more towards that way or to the left, but it wouldn't solve anything and it wouldn't be usable in any way. So we would try to at least keep 10 to 15 feet of that turnaround just for a comfortable kind of back in and out positioning.
So what I think you're saying is that really for a car to be able to move out and use that space as a turnaround, it really needs to be closer to the road because you have to pull the car out of the carport or the garage to make that turn.
Yeah.
So even by eliminating some of it, you'd be eliminating the part of it that actually complies with the ordinance and is outside, well, it's inside the building envelope, it's inside the setback. So I think I see what you're saying.
Yeah.
One question I do have though
Sure.
is that the turnaround space, I'm having a hard time seeing the dimension. Is that 16 feet? And maybe this is a question for Sam as well. If they were to eliminate that 16 feet to make it less of a parking space, would that eliminate the need for variance? If it was no longer 18 feet or 16 feet?
I'm sorry, I don't see what you're asking. Can you say more? I can see there's the 16 feet just to the right of the pavers. Or are you talking about?
So I guess the red box is a 9 by 18 kind of delineating a parking space. Do you have a cursor or something?
I do, yeah.
Okay, so is there a way to bring in the pavers, eliminate the pavers from 16 feet to say 12 feet? So it's now no longer a parking space. It's 9 by 12. It's not really a parking space anymore.
There have been instances where we have done parking turnarounds, but because it is still associated as a driveway and not parking, there is that standard, which is in 711, that your driveway does have its maximum.
Right.
there could be a greater way. And again, we don't have an issue with any of the, this delineates that 25 feet. If they wanted to make this longer, as long as it's in the building envelope, that would give them more room to back out. And I am not a landscape architect, maybe adding something here which makes that a more smoother transition out, but
Well,
the
what it
problem.
is the car has to get out at least so that when the wheels start to turn, you're not either hitting the other car that's inside of the garage or the
Yep.
side of the garage door. So you have, it's a turning template situation where you gotta get out and then turn around and then go out.
Yep.
So I see why it is where it is, and I see that moving it closer to the house is not really gonna gain them what they need, because what they're really aiming for is not parking, but a turnaround spot. Okay, that was the only question that I had. I just,
So pull up the picture real quick that shows the driveway from the road.
Nope,
I'm just trying to get a better understanding of what we're,
that was existing.
yeah, that one right there. So what you're talking about is,
So it is
Go ahead.
this section here, which is the first 10 feet of this K turn.
Right.
And then the amount of width here as well, which just, it has to be, for the first 25 feet, it cannot exceed 18 feet, with the exception of the radius flare out.
and so that part where it's a turnaround, I mean, the purpose of, the way I see it is when they pull into the driveway, into the garage, it allows them to then back in there and pull out forward, right?
Correct.
And so what you're saying, I think, is that if they reduce that size, does that then negate the necessity of a variance? Is that what you're asking?
if they reduce the side that is not in compliance, it's going to hinder that turnaround from being
Right, from being usable.
usable.
Right, so it's gonna defeat the purpose, driving.
It would defeat the purpose of
Yeah.
it being a turnaround.
But that was your question, right?
I was just wondering if by making it not so far to the side property line, could it no longer be considered a parking space? But what Sam was answering the question was that it's still inside of that front setback, so it would still be considered parking per se.
And that is, to go back and to be clear about what is happening, is it does talk about parking and loading standards. Part of that is accessibility, and there are, let's see where that is. There are other driveways in this neighborhood, which is hard to see through that yellow filter of the zoning, but there are other ones wherein that is done in the building envelope, or they do back onto the street. Anything else?
Okay, no other questions for the applicant? Okay, is there anyone else from the public who would like to comment on this?
I would.
Okay.
My name is Howard Rampersad. I'm a neighbor of Ed and Sue. I live on 129. I'm having a senior moment here. I live just around the corner from them, and I've watched this whole process. I'm doing the driveway, and I thought, this is a beautiful addition to their home. It has enhanced the neighborhood completely. I've talked to numerous folks in the neighborhood, and everybody comments that Sue and Ed's driveway and parking area and turnaround area is one of the most beautiful driveways in the entire neighborhood. Let's face it, folks, asphalt driveways and concrete driveways are ugly. They're in compliance with the standards, but this is something that is a total enhancement to the neighborhood. I understand there are rules and regulations, but there shouldn't be a major issue with this. We have a lot of ugliness in the city that it's not addressed. This is a pure enhancement to the neighborhood. A couple of points. The typical driveway apron should be concrete, 3,000 PSI concrete, I believe. 4,000. 4,000. I think the typical concrete paver PSI compressive strength is about 8,000. So you're looking at something that is a superior product. Yes, it could be damaged because it's on the apron, but concrete pavers are easily repaired. I have personally experienced this in a previous residence. It's easy to repair a concrete paver if it's damaged. So the city's liability with an apron that is not of the specified material, it's not really a major issue. Can't think of anything else I'd like to add, but thank you for your time.
Thank you. Is there anyone else from the public who'd like to comment?
I'm Ed Maggart, one of the two owners, and just wanted to, it was already brought up, but we're certainly happy to sign I forget what the document was called, saying that if there's damage to the driveway, we're willing to be responsible for that and not ask the city to pay it, whether that's construction through there from the city or whatever is going on. So we realize we're out of compliance. We'd obviously like to keep things the way they are, and we're certainly happy to take responsibility for that.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who would like to comment? Okay. If no one else wants to comment, I will close input from the public. And I will ask if there is a motion. Let me rephrase it. If there is a motion on the first variance, which is the parking and loading standards, which I will let Mr. Starbaum repeat exactly what we're covering under that.
Again, so there are two standards here. The first is actually just because it references 711, which is general development standards. This is your 783F9, which is found in general use districts. So what has to happen is you have to grant both of them for this to be considered a variance for the driveway that exists. So I can clarify more, maybe Mr. Edgerton can opine as well, but the first of the two votes would be on 783, which is general use districts. I will leave this up for your reference. This is the parking and loading standards found in the general use districts, which then also references parking and loading standards, which is that maximum width.
So we have to either say yes to both or no to both.
You have to say yes to both for this to be an affirmative.
Okay, then I'm going to ask Mr. Richardson, is it okay if we vote on both of them together?
Simultaneously, yes, you can.
Okay, so let's,
Would explain to me why? Because
So this is the language of RS4, which is found in 783. This was explained to me by Ricky, and I would invite more input, but because the parking and loading standards found in 783 specifically references 711, which is your parking and loading standards for the residential, which is found here, that this is, you then need the variance to both.
but that's just the parking.
These are parking and loading standards which cover the front setback and the driving and access standards which are found in that section of the UDO.
Seriously?
Yep. I agree with you. It would be great if it were one, but this is how it goes with the UDO sometimes.
I think that the second one is incorporated by reference into the first, such that you'd probably be fine just on the first one, but to make it totally safe, I think just covering them both, noting that both standards are covered by the variance, I think it's the safest.
I can confirm that city staff find this just as weird as you do.
Yeah, I'm perplexed about that one, but
okay, so do we have a motion on the one request we're making now?
But we approve the variance.
Okay, is approve the variances or approve the variances?
Sure, variances.
Variances? Okay, is there a second?
I'll second.
Second, okay. Let me start by making a comment. In situations where something's already been approved, where something's already been done, that they're asking essentially for approval after the fact. The way I explained to me that we have to consider this is that we have to look at it as though it had not been done yet. Okay, we have to look at it as though the applicant is coming in and saying, I want to do this, not that I already did this. So we are not to vote against it as punishment for their already having done it, but we are not to vote for it because they've already gone through the time and expense to have done it. Is that essentially clear?
That makes sense, yes.
Makes total sense,
Yep.
yes.
Okay. And the other thing that I will just comment on, having spoken with Mr. Edgerton about this, I think 30-some people who signed the petition, even though that is not sworn factual testimony, we are allowed to consider it unless somebody objects to our considering it. We're allowed to consider it as a minor point, but the fact that the petition is there is not to be the major reason for voting in favor of the variance request. Okay, having said all that, I open it to discussion.
Well, as you know, I probably have some thoughts about it. While I can appreciate that the neighborhood appreciates this driveway and it does look really nice, you know, it's like, where do you draw the line? Do you draw the line when the driveway is 100 feet long and then all of a sudden it doesn't comply? And then we go back and we say, well, we have standards. And then we look at precedent and we say, well, but we granted this one because it looked nice. That's an issue that I have to reconcile myself with as a designer and doing good work, and the way an end product looks, you do have to look at the laws, and they are made for the lowest common denominator. So for the guy who decides he wants to lay down a bunch of gravel next to a curb and park his RV there. So there are considerations that you have to make other than just the fact that the end product is aesthetically pleasing. I have long had an issue with the 25-foot setback, and I have long had an issue with parking in the setback. So I was hoping that we could split vote this. So having said that, I think that I did not hear anything in the testimony about any specific site hardships, any specific, the only other hardship that I can think of is the house is existing and the garage was in the location that the garage was in. But again, that wasn't in the application. And we didn't hear anything about any specific types of site features or hills or anything like that in the application or in the testimony today. So I'm having a hard time finding some type of site-specific hardship related to this piece of property for this driveway.
Is there anyone else who would like to say anything from the board? Okay. I will agree with Ms. Gotze about the unnecessary hardship. I took a look at what they wrote, as obviously we all should have done, and the answer to the first question, which is unnecessary hardship would result from the strict application of the ordinance. The response, and I'm going to paraphrase it in terms of what my reaction to it was, seems to be, well, it's really nice, and it's safe and more economical. That's a quote. And it mentions allowing the homeowners to safely exit the property. That gets back to a question I answered. I don't understand why they can't safely exit from a property that meets the standard. I still didn't quite catch that. So I also do not see the unnecessary hardship, which is one of the requirements for granting a variance. Okay, does anyone else have any comments? If not, I will ask for a vote. Ms. Gotzi?
No.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Mr. Newman? Mr. Smith? And Paul Lozinski votes no. So the vote is 3-2 in favor, but variance requests require 4 to pass, so the request for the variance is denied.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. If we can we have 2 minutes as a recess so I can reset for?
Absolutely.
Can I ask one question? Is there any way, is that it, just yes or no? Is there any way to give us 5 feet instead of 10? To start as a setback variance?
That was part of your application for what you were requesting in that. This is, and we can discuss this more on, I was hoping to talk to you outside about sort of what happens next, but this is, that was what was listed in the request in the application. So, and can I steal y'all in the hall and we can switch?
Okay, so we're taking a more
2
or less
minutes.
2-minute pause.
Yeah.
This is very sensitive.
I am if you are.
Okay, we are back in session. The second variance request, the owner, Sasha Bannister, is requesting a variance to section 17F5 setback standards of the Unified Development Ordinance, or the UDO. The petitioner is seeking a reduction from the 15-foot front setback standard in the RM8 residential multifamily medium-density district to a 0-foot front setback to allow for the closure of unopened road right-of-way located at 30 Sunrise Drive and identified in the Buncombe County tax record as PIN 9638-77-2291. Mr. Starbaum.
And thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the second time, my name is Sam Starbaum. I'm a planner 2, Development Services Department at 161 South Charlotte Street. The second item today before us is a variance request for 30 Sunrise Drive. This is an atypical order of a variance. The applicant and owner of the home is Sasha Bannister. They are represented today by their agent, the Sewells. You can see Mike and his wife there today, and they will be speaking on this as well. What has happened is they have gone in front of the Technical Review Committee already to close a portion of a road right-of-way, which I will show here. You can see the home. What is circled is 30 Sunrise Drive. This is the stretch of unopened right-of-way that is functioning as a driveway that they are seeking to close and split among these 4 property owners here.
Very briefly, can I ask, what exactly does the Technical Review Committee do? What's their function?
They do a great many things. So it ranges from anything above a level 1, which is done in-house staff. So level 2s, certain recommendations to planning and zoning commissions, to the council. There are a number of actions. This is considered a road right-of-way closure, which is required to go in front of the technical review committee of that, and it is comprised of a number of members from planning and urban design, from transportation, from public works, from water, to ensure that all members of city departments get eyes on this as well. But this is what I would call a fairly standard road right-of-way closure request, which started here, but is not what brings us before you today, but that is not the matter at hand. What we're going to be talking about is a variance based on the actions of the TRC.
Thank you.
So the TRC has reviewed the item and currently has it on hold. What they are doing is seeking to close this road and then split the property amongst those 4 owners. Here you can see the zoning, which is RM8. As is the case with West Asheville, you're going to find that this is a C of RM8 until you get down to about New Belgium, south of Waynesville Avenue, where that becomes the River Arts District. And then you'll have to go much, much further west until you get to the RS District. So plenty of RM8. Here is a good example of what this looks like. And I can zoom in for you a little bit to where you can see this. But what is happening is this would be the road closure along this portion, and you can see where those lines would then be divided up. So the property would be split, and then by virtue of splitting up this road, so if the TRC were to vote in affirmative, the private Houndsier Drive would then become the front setback. This is what brings us before you today, wherein we cannot, as city staff, allow or permit anything that creates or increases the degree of nonconformity. Now, as it currently stands, the deck that is there on that western portion is a perfectly okay deck. It is within the side setbacks. Side setback for the RM8 zone is 6 feet. There is not an issue with the deck. However, if this were to go through this closure, then that would become the front setback, at which point the deck would then encroach into the newly created front setback. So the TRC has specifically asked that the Bannisters, represented by the Sewells, come before you today to seek the variance for that 46% reduction to that front setback to allow for the 8-foot deck to encroach into that. So that is a little bit about it, and I can again blow this up a little bit, hopefully, to help clarify those matters. But I would be happy to stand for any questions you have on this.
So this has, I think this may not have anything to do with the issue, but basically the street that you're asking to close has, looked like 4 houses on it, is that right?
It has 3 houses, which is 30, 34, and then the schools, and then this house has access both off of Sunrise and through this. So if this road were to close, it would not close off driveway access. There would be a shared private driveway access agreement, and then there would also be access off of Hound's Ear for 30 Sunrise Drive. So
Okay, so
there
the
is no-
street would turn into a driveway?
that is correct. And this, technically, it is paper open right-of-way. This is a rare case where the applicants there are hundreds of miles of unopened paper road rights-of-way in the city of Asheville. Some people respect that, some use that unofficially. There's any number of ways in which those are treated. This is an instance in which the applicants and the schools and everyone there are cleaning this up to make this a little clearer for legal purposes. But in doing so, they've created a new issue, which they seek relief from this board.
So that's the only reason they're doing it, is to clean things up, or I don't,
Yeah, I'll let the applicant speak to that. I'm not party to why they're closing that road, and Eric can weigh in too. I don't want to get into the murky waters of the TRC action here. While it is certainly the impetus for appearing before the Zoning Board of Adjustment, it is not necessarily the purview, which in this case is then the deck.
To me, it's not real clear what I'm trying to hear what you're saying, but where you've got that 15 foot, you're closing that and going up the side. Is that what you're trying to say, that the deck is on the inside of that area? The driveway is another issue, right? Or you're going to a private drive?
Yeah, the private drive. The driveway requires no variance whatsoever. What is happening is because of the closure of the drive, you are then turning the 6-foot side yard setback into a 15-yard front setback, at which point then there is a portion of the existing conforming deck that then becomes non-conforming. Because we as a city cannot create a non-conformity, it has to go in front of the board.
By changing it away from a shared drive or shared road or roadway right there, you're creating that issue right there.
Yes.
Are there any other questions for Mr. Sarval at the moment? Okay, thank you. Would the applicant like to speak? If you would identify yourself first, please.
So yes, I am Mike Sewell. I'm the property owner of 26 Sunrise Drive and authorized to speak on Sasha and Luke's behalf on this issue. So in a nutshell, without reconfusing the issue, we're here seeking a variance for a conforming issue that would transition to a non-conforming issue so that we could advance the road closure request that we have. The language that was used, clean it up, if I may dive into that. So we have 3 houses, well 4 when you count ours, and the neighbors of this community. We put in all of the costs for maintenance of this paper road. And so what we would like to do would be to use this, obviously have the driveways, but help transform it into more community space. We're already, again, funding the cost of maintenance, but allow for increased pedestrian usage. We also have, it's a young neighborhood, and there are lots of children playing about in the right-of-way, and we can maximize that space for a lot of utility that would be a benefit to our neighborhood.
are the 2 houses to the page right of the house that's getting the variance, are those constructed, or are those just empty lots that are, those 2 lots to the?
So here we can see, are you talking about the one where my cursors are over here?
Those 2.
Those are constructed. One of those is the Sewell residence.
okay.
So that's, yeah, this, and you can see, again, I'm really wish that we can zoom in on this. But you
Yeah, I
can see-
tried, it got really grainy.
Yeah.
So y'all are gonna have shared driveway language for your access to that middle lot that looks like it's a
Correct.
Yeah.
empty lot.
Yes, there.
And then you can see, those are the homes that are already constructed. And then this is what this would look like from Hound's Ear, which is again that private drive. The deck is being obstructed by the car that's parked there, but that's, I'll leave that up and let Mike.
Okay, does anybody else have any? Any questions of the applicant? Thank you.
Oh, I did have one question. Was that road on the city's paving? Are they responsible for that road? So,
This is the situation that we're in. So as it's been explained to me by council, our council, is that paper trails, which are roads, or which are all over Asheville.
Yeah.
It was offered to the city, but never conveyed. So it hangs out there in limbo, and you just can't let a road hang in limbo because it deteriorates. So for the last decade, the neighbors have maintained the road.
You're talking about Sunrise Drive right now, right?
Yeah, the paper trail, right. So the hardship is if we were to move this process forward, we seek the variance. And, the hardship is to reconstruct an entire deck would be cost prohibitive.
Right.
Nothing really changes with construction. Everything stays the same, except obviously the variance for the new frontage.
Gotcha.
All right. Any more questions?
Okay. Is there anyone from the public who would like to comment? Okay, so no other comments. We'll close input and we'll move to the board. Is there a motion?
Ask you a quick question. On that going to where the property is, that drive right through there right now, is that going to be conveyed back to those four property owners? Is that what I remember saying?
Yes, and that is, I will say this, that there is a benefit to closing these paper road rights-of-way. This is something we are struggling with in development services right now and coordinating with emergency services. The fire marshal, as of right now, Chris Collins and Nancy Watford are also drawing something up. But the elimination of this is of city benefit. And by closing, again, it's sort of ruining what I would love to show you here and would really elucidate this, but it is divided evenly, and you can see sort of in this right-hand corner where what would be gained by each of those parcels, and that is, it is not Sunrise Drive, it is a paper road right-of-way offshoot, just to the northeast, there is the Sunrise Drive court extension, which is built, that has also been conveyed in a similar process, but because that was new, that was an easier process wherein everything was automatically conforming. And again, the deck is conforming now, it would just be a new non-conforming.
So is this property there, it was never conveyed to the city, is that right?
That's correct.
So it just be back, one of those four property owners, they divided up right there?
Yeah, as is the case with North Carolina general statutes, there are several options, but when the default for a road right-of-way closure is you basically draw the road right-of-way right down the center line and divide evenly and appropriate. Now, you can always get a private attorney involved to change the allocation, but that's the default for NCGS.
What's the city benefit?
So there are benefits here because there are people using this and getting injured on city property. There is an issue with mapping. A lot of people think already that they own this because they aren't required to get a survey. So it's something where they're building and improving upon city property. And then we say, hey, listen, we may actually need this in the future. This may be conveyed. So it provides a sense of clarity of what is exactly happening. I liken a road right-of-way that is unopened and on paper to sort of limbo. It could go either way. This provides clarity and definition. And we see, I want to say Stuart Rohrbaugh, the emergency 911 addressing coordinator, said there are 321 miles of unopened road right-of-way. And I can confirm that in the minutes, but it would not surprise me if it's actually more than that. That's me being conservative in that quote. And what this does is this provides clarity. And there's all the good flat available lots are taken, so each one is more challenging. By removing these, it only provides clarity to the city and most importantly for emergency services.
Well, and another city benefit is that the acreage goes to taxable parcels.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's my question.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions, comments? Okay, can I get a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the variance to a 8-foot front setback.
Second.
Any discussion or comments about the case within the board? Okay, let's see what we got here. So go for a vote. Ms. Gotzing?
Aye.
Mr. Webb?
Aye.
Mr. Newman? Mr. Smith?
Aye.
And Paul Wilczynski votes aye. The request for the variance is approved. Oh, yeah, there's one more thing, or we could be sitting here for a very long time. If there are no objections, we will adjourn the meeting. Any objections?
There are no objections.
If there are none, this meeting is adjourned.
These were very atypical requests. I thank you for your patience as we worked through all of those.
Jump in.
Mine was